Yoga is to find one's own intrinsic nature.
My name is Oberon. I was born and live in a rural Minas Gerais state, Brazil. This is my brother Samadhi.
It doesn't matter what our religion is. It doesn't matter what our culture or language is. It doesn't matter if we think of God with name, without name, with form, with no form. It doesn't matter.
We grew up on a lacto-vegetarian diet, planting part of our food, planting trees, bioconstructing.
And so it is this union of the self, this individual self, to the divine.
The region we live is in a mountain range called Mantiqueira, which means crying mountains in the indigenous language due to the large volume of springs and waterfalls. It's part of the Atlantic forest, one of the world's most biodiverse biomes.
Animals, plants, insects, human beings, we're all part of the nature. So each one is needed to maintain the harmony in nature.
But the region's main industry is the dairy farming, which is why most of its forests have become pastures. The dairy industry is the main driver of our biome's destruction.
People's life dependent on cows, and so they have really honored the cow.
What the Amazon does is life-giving. It's not only life protecting itself, it's life at its best protecting all other life, locally, regionally, in the continent, and globally, because the Amazon is a very, very powerful organ of the global climate. Not because it stores huge amounts of carbon, which it does, but also, and especially, because it interferes in the flows. We are destroying the forest that took 50 million years to evolve in 40 years. It's basically a major disaster that's happening, an extinction disaster.
In my understanding, the most serious problem is the problem of the species disappearing. So the biodiversity problem. If you look at the planetary boundaries, the species boundary has been threatened much more seriously than the carbon buildup in the atmosphere.
Even a small important screw is necessary. Irrespective of whether a thing is big in size or small in size, everything is needed in the creation to maintain the harmony.
We knew that in general, the yoga community recognizes the need to preserve nature. We decided to travel and listen to spiritual leaders and experts in the field. We were surprised to learn that the damage from meat, egg, and dairy production was much greater than we had imagined. Yoga was our reference for dialoguing with all spiritual traditions and embracing those who do not identify with any of them.
Honoring the creation and all its varieties, the fauna, flora, and species, has been part of Sanatana Dharma.
We're talking about millions of species of insects alone, not talking about bacteria, fungi, plants, large animals, etc. And we cut everything and put fire. And we're left with pasture and cattle and soybean and nothing. It's poor, just poverty. First of all, poor. Second of all, failable. It's failable because it will fail. Because once you get rid of the forest, you won't have rainfall anymore. And if you have no rainfall, you have no grass, no cattle, no soya. And so it's not very clever.
Chega de desmatar florestas inteiras Para quê? Para fazer pasto. Para quê? Para colocar vaca. Para quê? Para matar.
And then if you want to eat more, you have to grow more cow. You have to produce more cow. And then cows, from the cow dung and urine, lot of methane gas is produced. Methane gases cause greenhouse effect.
We traveled extensively in Brazil, but we knew that this was not an exclusive problem for the Third World. We then decided to travel to the United States to collect more data on this scenario.
Methane that we produce because we have substantially increased the livestock on this planet. So methane does two things actually. One of them is that it is a greenhouse gas and it contributes to global warming. And the other one is that can increase other air pollution. If we continue current emission trends, we expect this to be around 4 degrees by the end of this century, and that would entail a melting of ice in Greenland and in part of the Antarctic, and significant sea level rises, and another number of other environmental impacts that could be quite severe.
Now you get a subject, climate change, where the data is so overwhelming, so powerful, so incredibly compelling, that they say it's no longer a projection from climate models. It's the news hour. You know, it was predicted 30 years ago, 20 years ago. Now it's no longer predicted. It's reality, it's happening, it's opening, it's in the news.
Climate change is not just about saying it's going to be a few days of more hot or a few days of more cold. It's the kind of runaway effect that we are beginning to see today.
Indeed, these were not exclusive problems from Brazil. It's a global crisis.
Trees for huge forests are incredibly important to cool off the planet. When we are heating up, we start sweating because our body knows how to keep the temperature. And when we sweat, we release water on the surface of our skin, it evaporates, it takes off heat from our skin, we cool down. That's precisely what the trees do. They get water from the ground, from underground, and they transfer in copious amounts this water to the atmosphere in the vapor form. For example, a large tree in the Amazon can pump up to 1,000 liters of water in one day. We know from the satellites how much area in the Amazon is covered by trees. So we could calculate for the whole entire area, and that turned out to be pretty big number, like 20 billion tons or 20 trillion liters of water per day. If you don't have forests on land, then there is no artery flow. If you don't have forests on land, no feeding of water to the continent. No feeding of water, then no infiltration of water. No groundwater, no springs, no rivers, no streams, no creeks, and etc. And that's what happened when you lose the forests, like in the Sahara, in Australia, in Saudi Arabia, and all other deserts. It's happening in northeastern Brazil now. Then all the rivers and creeks and springs dried up.
The Amazon is being destroyed for animal feed for Europe and other places. Why? Don't need it. Eat more vegetables in Europe. Eat more vegetables in Europe. Save the Amazon.
You cannot speak of springs or rivers or anything without talking about trees. It's the same thing about the atmosphere.
To produce 1 kilo of meat, you are spending almost 5,000 gallons of water. But with 5,000 gallons of water, you can do agriculture in many acres of land. You can produce so many vegetables.
And water is essential to life. And as we traveled and realized that, despite consensus, the spiritual view of all this impact had a much less dramatic tone than the scientific data.
There's a lot of water use connected to fodder production, and there's water use connected to forage production for cows.
Uma vaca holandesa, uma vaca de leite adulta, tomaria mais de 100 litros de água por dia. Geralmente quando ela está gestando, ela também está amamentando, né? Porque elas entram num ciclo de emprenhar, né? e estar produzindo leite, né? Conforme a produção de leite, ela vai exigir uma maior demanda de água, né? Então, se é uma vaca de grande produção leiteira, toma mais água.
And in the meantime, our rivers are dying. So on one hand, you are overusing your water. On the other hand, whatever you have, you are polluting. But slowly, the arrogance of man, and it is really not women, but the arrogance of man has taken over all our relationship with nature. And as a result of it, we decided, no, we can build the dams, we will supply water when we need to. We are over and more powerful than nature. The very poor in our world are the most impacted because of climate change. When farmers cannot grow their crops because of either hot or cold or hailstorm or too much rain, then their lives are devastated. And this is something we are beginning to see. The poor are seeing it today. But what I would like to say is, it is not just the poor.
We have to protect for our coming generations, for Mother Planet. Very important. This is a green crime to go against nature, to harm the nature, to abuse the nature. This is not only not violence, but it is stealing.
At the moment, the way we treat our soil, our rivers, our forests, our animals, appears as if we are at war against nature.
For the United Nations Environment Program, where they ask us to look top down, what are the big causes of environmental impacts? In this figure here, and you can see here, the top lines are animal fat and proteins. And together they account for a third to about 40% of the total environmental impacts. A significant portion of that is ecosystem-related impacts because of the land use, but there are also impacts that are connected to greenhouse gas emissions and eutrophication and these other problems.
If we already have this information, then why won't government work to reverse the situation?
The government in Brazil and many forces, economic force, Wall Street, the rural caucus in Congress, and the farmers, etc. They want to raise cattle and then eventually soil, and they're paying for lobbying. They're paying for even evil scientists to make evil research, compromised, saying that this is not true. The same thing that happened with tobacco years ago. The same thing is happening with oil now and global warming.
They are willing to do anything to get rich. They are not only destroying nature, they are also invading indigenous reserves and killing native peoples.
Olha, ao todo são 311 mandados judiciais, 26 mandados de prisão preventiva, aquela por tempo indeterminado, 11 mandados de prisão temporária, 76 mandados de condução coercitiva e 195 mandados de busca e apreensão. De acordo com a Polícia Federal, essa quadrilha era chefiada por fiscais agropecuários e empresários do agronegócio.
As infected as the beef is, the past couple of years has shown that the politicians in Brasilia are perhaps even more infected and rotten to the core than the beef they're selling to their own people and exporting around the world.
They claim to be producing meat for the masses. If it's for starving people, it's justifiable.
Every time I argue on this subject, people say, but you couldn't feed the world with organic food or with plants. You need to have all this protein and I say, look, plants produce all the biomass. And then animals graze on plants and then produce a small amount of protein. And then predators prey on the animals and produce even a smaller amount of proteins. So if you want really to feed humanity, you give them corn and you give them even soya, and you have plenty, to feed twice as much humans as there are on Earth now. But if you want to feed them with meat, then it's not. You need several planets to be able to feed every human with meat in the rate that would be required.
We are part of an interconnected universe, and each of us has been given the possibilities of living well with a little share of it, the share that maintains our well-being. That's why Gandhi said, the earth provides enough for everyone's needs, but not for a few people's greed.
It's clear to me that what is essential for our lives is neither the economy nor tradition.
We are being invited at this moment in history to move to the compassionate and the diverse and the interconnected, or we are going to be extinct as a species.
Although the signs are terrifying, it seems that people are not too concerned about it. These evidences were more than enough to make our society stop the consumption of animal products. But that was not all. This consumption generates a tremendous disrespect for ourselves. As we traveled, another facet of this story was being revealed. This conventional diet is linked to 70% of modern diseases.
The graph for climate change is like that. The graph for species extinction is like that. The graph for cancer is like that. The graph for diabetes is like that. These exponential curves of degradation and destruction can be reversed. It is possible.
If everybody went to a vegan diet, it would allow us to reduce the water use, and it would actually allow the land to regrow and therefore absorb greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. That would have both impacts on the climate and very large impacts on biodiversity and the survival of other species.
Ayurveda has been an integral part of the Vedic tradition since an earlier period. And here the yoga people need to understand that Ayurveda is the yogic system of medicine and the Vedic system of healing for both body and mind. Yoga has healing abilities, but yoga originated as a sadhana or a self-realization practice for developing meditation and higher consciousness. So if we take the principles of yoga and practices and put them into a healing system, we end up creating Ayurveda. So these two need to be used together. So in Ayurveda, we learn the practice of yoga, the philosophy of Sankhya, Vedanta, Tantra, which is basically a way of self-knowledge. But by self-knowledge, we mean knowing our inner being or the eternal aspect of our being.
As we study yoga, we realize that within the process of self-realization, there is great emphasis on diet.
Vegetarian food is much more suitable because it's easily digestible, and our system, our body is very much tuned to vegetarian food.
Because you want the cow to grow fast, to get more meat, so you inject hormones. That's all causing bad health. That's harming your health.
If we consume a lot of meat and animal products, then what happens? The protein always putrefies inside the intestine.
In the West, an ovo-lacto-vegetarian diet that includes eggs and dairy is normally considered vegetarian. However, in India, eggs are not part of a vegetarian diet.
One egg, to your surprise, has 186 milligrams of cholesterol. Just one egg. So, along with cholesterol, you have saturated fats in egg. I'm sure that it's a very good recipe for a heart disease. If you know a little bit of science about cholesterol, you will say a big no to eggs.
As pessoas não têm noção do tamanho da exploração na produção dos ovos. As galinhas vivem em um ambiente super insalubre, todas amontoadas, luz 24 horas, é uma crueldade extrema.
Eggs are not part of vegetarian, obviously you know that. Because they are not grown in the trees.
How can milk be vegetarian when it comes from an animal? After all, it doesn't come from a pea plant.
But tradition includes beliefs that determine this.
All the products that we get from cow, like the milk and the yogurt, ghee and cow's urine and cow dung, the mixture of all these 5 items are called Panchagavya. The 5 items mixed together. These are used even in rituals, the religious rituals. These items are used Panchagavya.
Então o ghee ele tem muitas representações, mas ele é muito dentro da culinária ayurvédica, dentro da própria medicina ayurveda, é muito utilizado. O que é o ghee, né? Essa manteiga clarificada que passa por um processo, o nome já diz clarificação, onde a gente tira todos os resíduos sólidos que, ingeridos numa manteiga comum, são resíduos que ficam grudados na parede do aparelho digestivo, que ali parados começam a produzir toxinas. Ele é um condutor dos nutrientes, né? Um condutor onde ele é usado na medicina para medicar as ervas, por exemplo, né? Porque ele conduz as ervas camadas mais profundas do corpo, e é onde elas precisam ir.
Sim, na verdade, na Índia, o ghee ele é considerado ouro líquido pela capacidade de rejuvenescimento cerebral mesmo. Ele nutre e rejuvenesce as células mais sutis do cérebro, que desperta a inteligência sutil.
You are consuming a lot of saturated fats and cholesterol directly from asli ghee, from pure ghee, because it is what every single gram of fat has 9 calories, and asli ghee is similar.
All over the world, milk is used. After mother's breast milk, the milk is supposed to be the most nutritious drink, nutritious food item for people. Because cow is a very sattvic animal, cow usually does not harm other animals, like lion or tiger. It's a very sattvic animal. So the milk is supposed to be a sattvic item, sattvic food.
However, most of the milk consumed in Hindu homes and ashrams does not come from sacred cows.
In India, the buffalo milk forms about 51% of the total milk that gets procured, and 49% would be cow milk. But it is a mixed milk which comes to the cooperatives, and the mixed milk that is being used.
Yes, we also traveled to India. Difficult to talk about yoga and its principles without mentioning that country. Also for the matter of food. The country is famous for the popular lacto-vegetarian diet. But our real motivation for this trip was another, and it will be exposed later on.
He was very fond of milk. If Krishna was very fond of milk, why not we?
See, the tradition is Krishna used to drink milk, so we should drink milk. Especially not religious people, because all your religious gurus drink 1 bucket of milk every day. Because in India, we fool ourselves, saying that Meat is non-vegetarian, but milk is vegetarian.
In India, what happens, when any saints become sick, and when they die with the disease, we avoid to question them. But I took this in a very different way, because when I started my practice, at that time what I found, a lot of saints came to my hospital for their cancer problem. I thought, why saints had cancer? Because for cancer, they need a high toxic body, low immune system. So from where they got all high toxicity? Disturbed blood chemistry, they must have a disturbed blood chemistry, disturbed hormones and low immune system. How could they, after living such a wonderful life, means they are like a king, they are living like a king, they have all the facilities, they don't have tension, they don't have family, they don't smoke, they don't drink alcohol, and then how could they become cancerous actually? So they were drinking a lot of milk in their regular diet, means lacto, as you told, lacto-vegetarian diet. So almost all Indian saints, almost I can say 90% of Indian saints I saw, they are dying of different diseases. I have treated myself from Vrindavan, from Haridwar, and from so many, this one is spiritual, this one ashrams. They are dying of heart disease, they are dying of heart attacks, they are dying of kidney failures, they are dying of diabetes. How could they get these diseases? And when I talk to them about this diet program, then what their disciple says, see, they know everything. You just give them treatment, whatever you want to give. You don't teach them. Then they are very intelligent. They know everything. So they never allowed me to talk like this, and some become very angry with me sometimes when I talked about milk. So you should not drink milk. You say you are a foolish man. Means I was scolded actually in this all their ashrams. So therefore I have written one book, Why Saints Fall Sick. This book in Hindi, Mahatma Rogi Kyun. Body does not understand your compulsions and your religious belief system, Body says, what I want you must provide me, that's all. This is so simple law.
A diet without cholesterol and low in saturated fats would be the best diet. And I can bet on that this is the future diet. Only animal products have cholesterol.
It is known that the number one cause of death in the world is heart disease. We have learned that the main cause of these diseases is the food that comes from animals. But what has become evident is that not only the heart is affected by this diet.
See, milk is basically a hormonal product, as I told you, and it has got 56 kinds of hormones. Our hormonal system gets exhausted by overuse, by overworking. And then thyroid and so many different kinds of women reproductive problems. So therefore there is a direct connection between diabetes and the milk. I have clearly seen in my practice also.
Para pessoas que têm tendência a ter diabetes tipo 1, quando usam leite, esses mesmos antígenos, eles fazem com que anticorpos do nosso corpo ataquem as células beta do pâncreas.
And then as we all know that even with type 1 diabetes, it has been found that cow's milk in early infancy has been linked to cause autoimmune disorders.
Aí a gente recebe um copo cheio de antígenos. Esses antígenos vão funcionar no nosso corpo como ativadores do nosso próprio sistema imunológico. E aí eu vou ter respostas como o excesso de muco.
So if every day you have an eosinophilia, then you are vulnerable for every other disease, especially diabetes. And India is the diabetes capital of the world.
Diabetic capital of the world. There are 65 million people suffering from type 2 diabetes now, which are officially diagnosed. And there are many more which have not been diagnosed. India is struggling with type 2 diabetes because of a lot of dairy in their diet. Dairy is high in saturated fats and cholesterol. And for type 2 diabetes, it's not only the sugar which is the culprit, it's the fats. the fats inside the muscle cell, which disrupts the insulin receptors. So that's why you have insulin resistance.
My dad worked out on this book a little later when we were born. So before that, when we had milk, when even he wasn't really on that subject that point of time, I really always used to have these cough problems. My body was really allergic to milk. But then and when he realized, okay, stop giving her milk. I used to drink milk, a glass, and I used to go to school, and I felt really sleepy all the time. That's the thing, is it was actually too heavy for me. That milk, that was a cow's milk, it was too heavy for me. He immediately stopped it. And my education improved, my concentration improved. Anything that was going in my body that was wrong, like all the coughs and my colds, everything got sorted.
A baby born only lives on mother's milk. And mother's milk has only 4% of protein. And within 6 months, the baby doubles or triples in her weight of the body. So little protein. But we have been brainwashed to think that you need so much protein. So we need to eat plant-based diet.
Cow's milk doesn't suit human body. It is not shaped in such way. The nutrition required by a calf is completely different from the nutrition required by our kids, isn't it? It may be needing 10 mg of vitamins per day, okay, but our kids may be requiring only 2 mg. So the 8 mg, the difference is only a burden to our human body to digest. So this is what we recommend people now. Please keep away from milk products.
Dr. Benjamin Spock, the world famous pediatrician, even he has specifically mentioned in his book that post 2 years of age, no animal protein should be given to any child whatsoever. Including, he specifically mentions no fish and no dairy. But the myth is that milk is needed for Indian strong bones, and so that's a very big myth.
All high protein diet, they create a lot of uric acid and urea inside the body, and calcium has to neutralize all these acids.
It tries to neutralize that acid by chelating calcium phosphate from the bones.
Milk is a calcium leacher, it is not a calcium giver actually, instead of that, if we eat a lot of nuts and seeds and all fruits, we get all the calcium whatever we need inside our body.
I have my office in US. I go there, and if I see 10 clients, out of 10, at least 8 have some history of self or in their immediate family member having cancer. So it's very scary, very, very scary.
When people get cancer from eating meat, cancer and every other disease, from osteoporosis to ulcers to everything, but vegetarians in India get exactly the same amount, because they make up not eating meat with eating milk, and milk in all its forms. We have paneer, which is feta cheese, lassi, we have dahi, we have curd, we have yogurt.
Eu já era praticante de yoga há bastante tempo, era ovo-lacto vegetariana. Eu estava na academia e eu comecei a sentir taquicardia. Aí, depois que eu comecei a sentir taquicardia, achei que tinha alguma coisa a ver com pressão, coração, enfim, acabei descobrindo que eu tinha um tumor na suprarrenal. Esse tumor na suprarrenal me fez parar um tempo. Aí eu fiz a cirurgia, tirei esse tumor, continuei com a minha prática de yoga, continuei com a minha alimentação. Passou uns 8, 9 meses, eu tive um outro tumor no mamilo. Tirei esse tumor, continuei com a minha dieta. Passou um ano, eu apresentei um tumor maligno que ficava na cabeça, muito perto do ouvido, pegava ouvido, garganta.
Eu fiz a formação de yoga em 2001 e desde então eu me tornei lacto-vegetariana. E aí, em 2015, eu descobri um nódulo no seio direito.
Esse tumor eu operei em 2013. Aí, depois da retirada desse tumor, eu tive que fazer um tratamento de radioterapia.
Tive que fazer a mastectomia e iam ver se eu ia fazer a quimioterapia.
Basically, drinking milk means it is a cancer initiator.
Why is that? It's because of insulin-like growth factor 1, which is a hormone and which comes from milk. Pizza has been found to be number 1 in food addiction. And why? What a surprise, it's because of cheese. When you break down cheese, it gets converted into casomorphins. And what are casomorphins? They bind to neurotransmitters. And what happens then? When they bind, they releases dopamine. And dopamine is a feel-good hormone. So you feel good.
Às vezes param de comer carne, mas o leite acaba sendo uma última mais difícil, porque ele tem esse componente que é neuroquímico, né? A gente fica dependente e a explicação é por causa da caseína.
Às vezes é mais fácil uma pessoa não vegetariana virar vegetariano do que um vegetariano virar vegano, né? Fiquei pensando sobre isso e realmente acho que é isso mesmo, sim.
How do I define milk? Milk is a cocktail of pus, antibiotics, growth hormones, saturated fats, cholesterol. And you consume freely. Wow, it tastes good, but you are actually consuming the pus of that cow.
Yes, we heard correctly. All commercialized milk has pus in it, and may also contain feces and blood. This is because the cows develop swollen udders. The dairy industry also assesses the quality of the milk by counting somatic cells. Every country establishes its own maximum limits for how much can enter to the marketplace.
In general, the milk that comes to the dairy cooperative society at the village level, the pooled milk, it is around about 70,000 would be something which is acceptable for getting the milk into the system.
So we can affirm that the majority of health professionals are either deceived or ignore the most recent scientific evidence and continue repeating belief systems from the last century.
And pharmaceutical industry would love that. They want us to consume dairy, they want us to consume processed meat so that they can sell their products. And these are all preventable diseases. We don't need medications to avoid these problems.
The ones who produce the food, Monsanto, etc., are coupled with the ones who produce the medicines. So they make humans sick and then they supply all the medicines to quote unquote fix this sickness, but then this fixing produces side effects which require further fixing, and that's rivers of money that flow into those corporations.
They produce medicine for people, right?
And then vaccines and medicine comes to the society through veterinarians to farmers.
So they also produce medicine for tuberculosis, diabetes.
Even vaccines also we are making. This is a subsidiary of NDTV, IIM, Immunological Laboratory, and they are manufacturing all.
Since the dairy industry is a very powerful, very dangerous industry, it is as powerful and as dangerous as the meat industry because it's mainly illegal. I wanted to put red dots and green dots on every food. Everybody agreed except the milk lobby, which said no, things that have milk in them have to be considered as vegetarian. And now you have a red dot and a green dot on all food, but the milk food is considered green.
So if we realize that what we need to put in our plate, what kind of foods we need to bring in the center of the plate, we can really give a hard time to the pharmaceutical companies to sell these drugs.
Então eu fui atrás para saber que alimentação, o que eu poderia mudar na minha vida. E aí vem o veganismo.
Entrando nessa história do veganismo, colocando coisas mais alimentação viva.
E me fez tão bem, tão melhor. E aí eu não precisei da quimioterapia.
Não, e o mais legal é que muitas chances disso voltar. Eu sempre tive muitas chances disso voltar. Ele é seguro de medo dos médicos, né? E eu tô no 4º ano sem nada.
You think about calcium, it's there in beans and greens. You think about proteins, it's in lentils and beans again. You think about iron, plenty of iron. Vitamin D, actually it is not found naturally in milk. You need it from sunlight. You think about micronutrients, macronutrients. Everything is there. It's a complete nutrition. Those who are on a plant-based diet, only supplement they need is vitamin B12. And even regardless of those who are vegan or not vegan, everybody needs vitamin B12 because we are not getting, even those who are consuming non-vegetarian food are not getting enough vitamin B12. So plant-based diet is a complete nutrition for you.
In Ayurveda always they say, in case you don't have this, do this. In case you cannot get this plant is like what I mentioned in the beginning. That plant from Himalaya is not there. You can use this plant from your area. It is tested, textbooks are there. Because all these situations happen so many times.
I am a practitioner, so I understand the principle. The principle doesn't change, but my practice is based on local resources. So I look at locally available plants, I use that.
So there is a substitute always. That's what you use.
Even for ghee?
Yeah, even for ghee there's a substitute. So for example, ghee is the best option. But if the ghee is not there, then there are so many other oily, other medicated oils which can have a different effect. Maybe sesame oil, maybe coconut oil.
Everything is updated to the right time, to 2,000-3,000 years later. Like the scripture mentioned, right? Eat ghee is good for you. Today we have flax oil, olive oil, all these divine celestial oils, not animal anymore.
I think there is a misconception that animal products is one of the most important thing. It's not true. In our daily panchakarma, we don't use any animal products. We use different basti. Basti is like made a decoction and oil together. Oil is like sesame, which is not animal product, and plants, different plants of the forest and different medicines. But there are potentials because in our classics they mention more than 2,500 plants, but we are using only 700.
Walk on the path of yoga. It is always better to have a sattvic food system where we are eating fresh fruits, where we are taking fresh salads, where we are eating germinated seeds like green gram, chickpea, peanuts, and live a much more healthier life.
So yoga is about taking us to a higher level, starting from where we are, trying to make our lives something truly meaningful. The deeper level of yoga practices is, as we say, cultivating moment by moment awareness, which means being present at every moment. If you follow a principle like truthfulness or ahimsa, and we can also change our perception. In other words, instead of just looking at ourselves as a body, we can start thinking of how we're connected to all humanity or to the universe as a whole.
Patanjali, in his Yoga Sutra, in the second pada, or second chapter, talks about things we can do, and they're called the yamas. And the yamas have to do with what you should do if you're still seeing others and not the one, not your own self. He says, you should not hurt them, you should not lie to them, you should not steal from them, definitely don't abuse them sexually, and don't be so greedy.
Ayurveda encourages us to then examine what is going on in our lives and in our environment, and then act and live and develop our awareness accordingly. So these are good models to follow. Be aware of the ahara, what we're taking in, make sure that's wholesome. Being aware of our vihara, or how we are express ourselves, and make sure that that is beneficial for everyone. Achara, made sure that our behavior is following the rhythms of nature and the laws of dharma, like the yamas and niyamas of yoga. And vichara, making sure our mental activity is going to a deeper level of discovery of truth rather than just accepting things outwardly and following a more simple enjoyment way of life.
Ayurvedic foundation principles is very unchanging, is same in yoga, same in Ayurveda, and we also practice reciprocally.
8 limbs of yoga. The first limb is called yama, means the rules, and ahimsa is one of them, non-violence.
Even the great masters followed ahimsa. So ahimsa is we talk as ahimsa parama dharma. It is the highest state of dharma, ahimsa.
That same God, again by any name, any form, lives in all my brothers and sisters, lives in the animals, lives in nature. So when my yoga is real, when my union is real, then automatically I care for them. Automatically, how I live, what I eat, what I buy, what I say, what I do, is done in accordance.
Bhuta Yajna is caring for animals, caring for creatures. So this is part of the 5 Mahayajnas that a person is supposed to do on a daily basis. Respect for animals or compassion is again part of ahimsa, which is part of Sanatana Dharma.
Em 2012, os neurocientistas se reuniram em Cambridge para declarar, sim, que todos os animais têm senciência. Fechou a questão.
Então, nós não podemos cometer nenhuma violência ao ser vivo desnecessariamente.
Sanatana Dharma gives us some principles, code of conduct, how to live. So you do less himsa, you practice more ahimsa. So as I said earlier, we have to eat something, so we can eat vegetable and vegetarian food.
Ayurveda should also project the vegetarianism. So part of it is true, because Ayurveda says, as I said, that for sattva guna of mind, like for balancing of mind, Ayurveda says that we should follow non-violence. So when we think of non-vegetarian food, if non-vegetarian food is only sourced by violence, if either I did it or somebody else did it for me, but it's a violence. So Ayurveda says that if you want to become sattvic, it's good to become vegetarian. This is absolutely true.
In view of all these inconvenient discoveries about the degradation of the environment and health due to livestock, we were forgetting the main one, the victim.
If you want to learn more about cows, you can explain better. Here also, one Murugan is there.
From a religious point of view, they say all divine beings live in the body of a cow. That's from a religious point. You can believe, or you may believe, you may not believe. That's a different thing. But from a religious point of view, cow is considered an animal where many divine beings are residing. So in that way also it is respected. But from the practical point of view, cow gives milk.
É ser místico. A vaca é ser místico.
But the dairy industry is extremely cruel, torturing and killing cows.
Most of the cows were in a small space, just space enough to stand and sit. And even like a newborn calf is just like allowed to stay with the mom just for one day and then take into that space, because the mom gets ready to get artificially impregnated again to continue that cycle of milk production. You see how everything is mechanized, how everything is so cruel and so unethical.
This factory farming is a very dangerous and unhealthy as well as unkind phenomena.
So people who feel concerned about the cow's welfare and who seek a more ethical lifestyle, like many vegetarians do, look for milk from the so-called happy cow.
Então, uma vaca feliz é uma vaca que pode viver a sua natureza.
A happy cow is a cow who has the ability to move and graze, who's fed more natural items. Obviously, if the cow was grazing grass, Brazil, you have tons of grass, and who is treated well and who's given some degree of longevity.
It would be those cows that have a name, that stay in the pasture, those from small farms.
O bezerro nasce, raramente ele mama na vaca.
Quantos bezerros vocês tiram por ano aqui? Aqui sai uma média de 20 bezerros. Os machos a gente doa eles. Ele vai ser sacrificado ali novinho. As fêmeas nós cria para poder...
São futuras vacas, né?
Porque nenhuma mãe é feliz tendo a produção do seu leite roubado e o seu filho sequestrado. Ou a sua filha escravizada. A vaca feliz, ela é um mito que, outra vez, só encobre o nosso desejo de ter esse passe livre.
O que faz com a vaca velha? É descartada, nós vende para açougueiro.
Perhaps where those happy cows live is much more specific and much more rare than we had imagined. We would hope to find it in a place where the cows are worshipped, where they are part of the daily spiritual rites.
Sinceramente, um devoto, quando cuida das vacas e dos bois, é uma relação direta com Krishna também, faz parte de Bhakti, né?
Aqui na fazenda, todos os dias se faz preparações de leite para Krishna, pelo menos umas 5. Então tem as tradicionais, que ele come de manhã, que é burfi, sandesh e rasagula. São doces feitos à base do leite. Colina de Govardhana, que é a festa das vacas. A gente comemora a festa das vacas aqui em Nova Gokula. É uma festa muito linda. E a gente fazia assim, 150 litros de doce de leite, 50 litros de iogurte para fazer lassi. E eu fazia muitas preparações só com produtos do leite. Já aconteceu, em determinado momento, de eu comprar um bloco de manteiga, começar a fazer ghee e devolver para o cara. Eu levei com a panela e tudo, lá no laticínio que eu costumo comprar.
Então esse leite não vem das vacas aqui da fazenda?
Não.
If you want to produce a liter of milk from this happy cow, you will wind up with a new calf every year. Either you become a large landowner and start invading the forest, or you kill the cows.
Então, nós chegamos a esse grande problema, né? Porque uma coisa é você ter uma vaquinha, ela tem um bezerro, dá leite, você cuida muito bem, o bezerro cresce, aí ela para dar leite tem que ter outro bezerro, quando vai ver é uma progressão geométrica, né? E a gente está vendo que realmente você precisa de muita terra, né? Não é como na Índia que os animais ficam soltos.
É muito diferente daqui, porque são poucas as vacas que têm em terrenos fechados. E quando se tem espaço para elas andarem, né? E normalmente a gente encontra as vacas no meio da rua. Então, assim, não é só em pasto que elas circulam e circulam de boa.
Na Índia, as pessoas acordam de manhã, abrem os seus altares, depois elas alimentam as vacas, alimentam os mendigos. Essa é uma rotina normal na Índia.
That's when we decided to go to India to see this up close, to better understand the relationship they have with the sacred cows.
From 2008 to 2016, meat being eaten has doubled.
You know, whenever we read in the newspapers that India has become the leading exporter of beef.
India is the #1 beef exporter in the world. It keeps trying to compete with Brazil for that position. as ironic as that is, and that's because India is also the world's #1 dairy producer. The two things are not separate. It's because of one that the other exists. As cows who are raised for beef, or buffaloes who are raised for beef, all of the animals who end up at the slaughterhouse are supplied by the dairy industry. All of those female cows, when they are regarded as not being able to produce as much milk as they once did, end up at the slaughterhouse. And many people are simply unaware of what happens to animals, especially for dairy. Of course, everybody knows for meat animals are killed, but they don't realize that also for dairy, the dairy industry is a supplier to the beef industry.
We have a right to know that India was exporting, cow meat. We have a right to know. We didn't. None of us knew. The government representatives, they have a dharma and a duty to bring that consciousness to us, not to remove it from our lives.
I think when people come to India and they see these cows in the street, they take pictures, and it's in many ways it's lovely to see them, but the story behind why they're on the street or how they ended up on the street is a very sad story indeed, and the plight of those animals is very sad because they don't get enough to eat and they don't get enough to drink, and they consume garbage.
A few years back we started the stray cow rescue because it's a government policy having that they cannot be in a town because of a traffic problem and then a lot of problems. And then they approach me, the government is approaching me, the Karuna Society, and then we went there. We see that it's a very severe problem. Every town having a lot of cows, and then that is like a mafia. All the people are keeping animal very free of cost, and then they they can graze everywhere, and then they can sell as a slaughter. It's all involving all the business. That is all the business.
When they go to the garbage dump to eat, and you'll often see that in India, cattle surrounding garbage dumps, they ingest tons and tons of plastic in their bodies, rusted nails, glass, all sorts of things which are in that garbage. And you'll find that when these cows are sometimes rescued and end up at a sanctuary, they will operate on these cows and take out kilos of plastic from their stomachs and their bodies. If that plastic wasn't removed, that's a slow death for that animal.
They can get the stomach problem, and then they cannot digestion, and then they don't have a place in stomach. And then we sterilize the cow, and then we find out nearly 50 kilo of plastic.
Você não vê pasto na Índia, é o segundo maior rebanho do mundo.
They can't be on the streets, and there are no pastures to walk freely in or to feed themselves.
We are now in a very holy place. As we can see, it's a very nice place with shadow, trees, but the cows cannot move and spend most of the time stuck without food, without water. Yeah, very sad life, even in a very spiritual place.
Quando eu restringo eles confinados, eles não têm essa liberdade, não conseguem expressar comportamentos que seriam naturais da espécie, tá? Se relacionar entre os outros, né? Estabelecer aquela ordem social entre eles, né? Interagir socialmente. Obviamente que eu tenho redução de bem-estar nesse animal que está confinado.
This doesn't just happen at the ashrams. This is what we see most commonly all over India.
Por exemplo, os búfalos, né, que são espécies que precisam, né, necessitam de contato com a água para fazer uma melhor troca de calor, para se refrescar, né? Às vezes, geralmente vivem em ambientes quentes, né? Rolar na lama, por exemplo, para perder calor, e eu tirar ele desse ambiente, ele vai sofrer com estresse térmico. Claro que daí no confinamento tu vai ter a restrição do espaço e vai ter essa dieta necessariamente, né, uma dieta artificial, com menor nível de fibra que é necessário, né, para esses herbívoros, e altos níveis de carboidratos, de proteína, né, que podem e geralmente levam a distúrbios, né, gastrointestinais nessas espécies.
We have 3-4 type of the cattle feed. This is a regular one. This is much higher protein and fat. Bypass.
Bovino, durante um dia, ele tem que comer de 20 a 30 quilogramas de comida, né? Forrageiras, gramíneas, alguma leguminosa, algum tubérculo.
We needed to know the headquarters that controls the country's milk production.
Operation Flood is the largest food for aid development program across the globe. So that's where we left at 97, and by 1999 India became the largest milk producing nation in the globe. Productivity of cattle in our country was very less. So to improve the breed, so a lot of breeding programs were started by NDDB from 2000 onwards. We have made all the dairy cooperatives across the country. Today we have about 16 million dairy cooperatives in the country. By 1997, the milk production of our country was 76,000 million ton. Okay, so that was achievement for the country. But today, 160 million ton. So that's the amount of milk we produce today.
Milk production basically means to breed cows. The cows must get pregnant to produce milk.
So brahmacharya, not to abuse others sexually. What's involved is sexual abuse to the nth degree. They're usually tethered, meaning they're roped or chained in place, and they're raped by a human. You know, sperm is put into a syringe, and first of all, I mean, it's ugly. He puts his hand inside, and then he just shoots the sperm. She doesn't even get to turn around and look to see who raped her.
Artificial insemination is an important way by which the breeding gets improved, and it is one of the things which we have been doing over the last 3 decades. We have trained huge number of artificial inseminators and sent them across the country. They are in the villages. They pay some minor amount to get the cattle artificially inseminated.
Então, se a gente pegar uma vaca de 20, 30 anos atrás, ela tinha uma genética, um híbrido, que produzia um X de leite. Hoje, a gente tem uma vaca que produz 3 até 10 vezes mais leite. Então, é uma vaca com um híbrido enorme. Isso vai predispor ela a um número maior de patologias, né, dessa região anatômica ali, principalmente, né, mastites. E é importante salientar que é uma doença extremamente dolorosa e atinge boa parte dos rebanhos leiteiros. Muitas vezes de forma subclínica, que o produtor nem está vendo, né? Então ela está sofrendo no momento da ordenha porque está com aquele teto inflamado.
Our country, this mastitis is a problem. There is a huge loss in the farmers' income because of diseases like mastitis.
The use of this drug called oxytocin is very, very common in India, even though it's banned to be used to increase milk production. It's very common across dairy farms, and when the cows and buffaloes are injected with oxytocin, it causes contractions similar to labor pains.
In India, it is generally oxytocin that is being injected through the cattle, but we in the cooperative tell all milk producers that please do not inject oxytocin or put any injection for increasing the yield of the cattle, because that is basically harmful to the consumers.
Cow has a status of mother. So we respect cow as a mother.
Cow has always been called as a mother, Go Mata.
In Indian tradition, cow is also compared to a mother. We call Go Mata. Mata means mother.
Cow is our mother. So when you give a mother position, you treat with respect, you take care of it, and be happy with the mother.
This is absolutely no way to treat a mother. We wouldn't treat our human mothers like this. How dare we call cows mother and then treat them in this way?
The cow needs to be treated well. That's the first example. And then we learn to treat all other animals equally well.
Cows and buffaloes are really excellent mothers. They're very, very attached to their young. We as human beings could never imagine somebody coming and ripping away our children from us, but that's precisely what we do to other animals, and it hurts them tremendously. At dairy farms across India, you can literally hear babies wailing, mothers wailing.
Second generation of this animal should grow healthy. For that, people are some greedy, so it's one small calf is required per time is, say, suppose 2 liter.
Okay.
But the people will give only 1 liter or 1.5 liter. So calf will not survive what we require.
There's no way to compassionately take a baby away from their mother cow. And again, what I say, because we interview people, if you can show us how you compassionately do this, if you can show us how you, being a yogi or being a spiritual person, how do you spiritually kill an animal? How do you spiritually take that baby away from the cow? Because we haven't found it.
When there's a male calf born, they are just abandoned on the street, and somebody would come and would be taken for slaughter. Whereas if it's a female cow, yes, again they will go for the exploitation in the dairy industry.
It's all connecting to business. If it is female, they're keeping. If they're not female, and then immediately they're slaughtering. Sometimes even females also they're selling.
Male calf has no value because it cannot give milk, so they are sent for slaughter.
Actually, we are not doing that slaughter business, no. So we normally, my people, they are not eating this meat and all. So they are not doing this business. Their business is only milk. So if it is male, they will sell it out.
Okay.
They will not wait to grow and get more money from the meat.
All our spiritual leaders know what happens with animals. They know the cruelty, they know the bestiality, they know the viciousness involved in the milk, egg, meat trade. But they prefer not to get involved. All our spiritual leaders live a life apart. so where they are confined to their mandirs and their religious places, but they very rarely take a position on food, unfortunately.
So they know where the milks come from?
Of course. Many of them keep cows, and many of them sell their babies to the butchers.
They leave the ashram and head toward the slaughterhouse. I have always admired those activists that film animals going to slaughter or being slaughtered. Those who, no matter how painful it becomes, still hold firm against the sadness and rage of watching their tragic destiny, without being able to do anything in order to reveal what is hidden. They need to be very strong, and I wasn't. Suddenly, I find myself in that situation. The little skin and bones calf tied in front of the other lacerated calf bodies. Soon a truck arrived with 3 more. The men pulled the calf from the truck, and they were so weak that they could hold up the weight of their own bodies. They didn't want to go inside, but the man pushed them, yanking their tails. The only ones there who can do anything to save them were us. The only ones who recognize that injustice and the impotence of those beings, the fear in their eyes. But we didn't do anything to save them. We couldn't. I focused into recording it all while distracting the man who asked me to turn off the camera. They didn't want to go inside. They knew they were going to die. Those frightened children would be dead in a few minutes, innocent beings, killed just to satisfy our taste buds and to keep intact ancient traditions like consuming dairy products. This is what's happening right now, every day, all around the world.
Even though the law says you can't kill calves before the age of 15. There are no 15-year-olds in India, there are no 10-year-olds, there are no 8-year-olds.
In India, a cow is not of much value after 8 years, 7-8 years of its life. So that's how it is, because its reproductive age as well as production age lies between them.
Então uma vaca que poderia viver 20, 25, até 30 anos, vive muito menos, às vezes até 4, 5, 6 anos, né? Porque são descartadas, né?
There are no rules for slaughter, there are no rules that are obeyed. It is run by bribery and corruption. There are 3,000 legal slaughterhouses in the country, and there are 50,000 illegal slaughterhouses.
There's a lot of states in India which have banned the slaughter of cows, which have banned beef consumption also. But so long as the dairy industry continues to exist, those animals are still killed. Those animals, if they're not killed at the illegal slaughterhouses, often get transported extremely long distances to slaughterhouses in states where their killing is legally allowed.
I and my people, we stopped these trucks. I made the law which says only 6 cows can fit into one truck. In actual fact, they're fitting 90. And most of them are dead when they come to the slaughterhouse. Now the slaughterhouse, there are no rules. So you can have cows that have been dead for 3 days and you can still sell the meat. You can have cows with broken legs, broken arms, broken necks, which when you have 90 piled on top of each other, is what's going to happen.
So there are a lot of animal activists who, at night they are on rounds and, they get information about, that cattle's being trafficked. So they do raids, right? And this is how they are trying to save, cattle which are being taken for slaughterhouses in illegal way. Those mostly are illegal.
Law exists. You can't put more than 6 into a truck. But while you have a mafia running it, which involves the police taking money, The slaughterhouse is taking money. How do you stop it? We can stop it on the road. I stop it every night, but I can stop 3 trucks, 5 trucks, 10 trucks. There are thousands.
Usually what these cops do, they take money and they let them loose. As in, they send them, okay, go to slaughterhouse.
This is the police station and this is the road. They do nothing.
What we assume there must be 70 or 80 in one truck. You can see the blood all over here. They're suffocated. They are one on top of the other. They're suffocated. Their mouths are being tied with some other rope. Green chilies are filled in their eyes, you know.
Yes, of course. Pregnant cows are also slaughtered.
We export mainly to the Middle East. And now the Middle East has decided that they only want pregnant cows or milking cows. So many of the cows going now, cows and buffaloes, are pregnant and or they just had a baby and they are milking. So what happens is, in our slaughterhouses, they take a skith, a knife, and they cut the teats. And then they kill the cow, and then they put the teats on top of the meat to show that this was a milking cow. And we just stopped a truck that was going to Bangladesh, and it had over 100 cows in it. All of them were pregnant. And because the pressure was so much, many of them had given birth. I mean, the fetus had been forced out of the stomach, and it was lying there, kicking, dead. The cow was almost dead.
We left Brazil knowing that places exist where cows are kept inside the ashrams, the goshalas. We hadn't seen any good examples on this trip. So it was time to see Krishna's birthplace with its goshalas tended by devotees. We saw cows confined without food and water available. We found cows separated from their mothers, tied up without access to food, water, and the sun.
Apartar o bezerro da mãe da vaca? Não, é uma violência enorme. A ideia é que uma vaca, ela alimenta o bezerro e sobra leite. Esse leite que sobra, você pode ingerir. Depois o do bezerro está super feliz.
Some of the gaushalas in India are as horrible as dairy farms, if not worse. Hundreds of cows had died because of neglect. Oftentimes in these so-called sanctuaries, the animals are kept tied in one place on concrete all of their lives. They don't really have the freedom to roam or to do as cows would like to do in nature.
So dairy over there, okay? We try to dispose of something, we sell it.
We cannot then justify. So say for example, in Hinduism, it's often said, well, Krishna really enjoyed having butter or having dairy. Krishna loved cows. But maybe when, back then, the way that cows were treated is very different to what happens today for the dairy industry.
Você tem que oferecer a Krishna alimentos do modo da bondade. Então, se você sabe que aquele leite foi gerado de violência, e Krishna, ele é Govinda, né? Ele é protetor das vacas, ele não vai aceitar aquilo.
We traveled throughout India visiting ashrams and temples, but what we saw most often were ashrams that either disposed of calves or that bought milk from NDDB and Amul.
All religions call for compassion. That is, I think, the primary takeaway that we have to take from any religion. It doesn't matter if you're Hindu, Catholic, Muslim, Jewish, whatever you are. All religions call for that basic compassion and respect for others.
We need to have a deeper understanding of this, because the spiritual tradition is all about compassion. And if there is no compassion, perhaps it's not even spiritual at all.
I am a Muslim and I'm a vegan animal rights activist.
I'm Christian and vegan activist.
We're Jewish, we're pro-animal rights.
And we are vegan.
This is actually the base of the Buddhism. If you cannot help others, you should not at least harm others. So by eating meat, you are harming. You are harming someone's life. You are taking someone's life. On the whole, indirectly, we are the responsible, because we are consuming the meat. We are consuming the milk.
Right now, when you and I look at a cow, ox, cow, we don't see, oh, there's a steak. We don't see. Do we? We don't see, at least. But when we see a potato, we say, that's something to eat. But when we see a cow, we don't say, medium, well done, rare. We don't think like that. Some sort of a feeling we have right now. But it may become bad in the future, who knows? What I'm saying is, okay, I have a feeling. Many times, all I think about is my own feeling. Especially modern age. All they think about is themselves. Compassion is to know that you also have a feeling. You understand? She also have a feeling. He also have a feeling. So compassion is to put my feet in your shoes and then try to see how you see.
So I think for any spiritual person, we have to think about what's the meaning behind the lessons and not just stick so rigidly to the traditions.
Tradition is lively. Even in India, when you are here, when a master speaks, that is known as the Shruti. Shruti is always lively. You do not have to take the words of a master he said 100,000 years before. You have to understand that according to now principle. So you have the right to choose not the olden way, but to incorporate that olden way into the new facets of your life.
Você não pode mudar as escrituras, você tem que aceitar como elas são, mas ao mesmo tempo você tem que saber aplicá-las segundo o que é chamado de kala, desha, patra, tempo, lugar e circunstância.
The teaching always has to be adapted at an individual level, which means adjusting according to time, place, person, culture, and language. There are universal principles, but they require that ecological adaptation. And that is why there is a continual reformulation of the teaching by living teachers. And the old books are guidelines. They're very helpful, but they're not looked upon as the last word. They're looked upon as certain principles to follow.
Even yoga, in some aspect, has to be updated. People are turning to vegan. You understand? So everything is updated.
It doesn't matter what religion you are or not. This is a question of ethics.
A ética passou a ser desenvolvida e elaborada para fazer a ciência desse tratamento de um igual para outro igual. Os não iguais não entravam nessa ética. Mas nos últimos séculos, aqueles grupos considerados não iguais foram se introduzindo no mundo dos iguais. Nesse movimento, nós entramos então com a ética, que seria como é que fica a inclusão de todos os seres que constituem uma sociedade, de todos os seres que têm características iguais aos humanos e mesmo assim, por milênios, foram considerados como excluídos da ética, da consideração ou do respeito por seus direitos fundamentais. A consequência, o desdobramento das minhas ações é mais importante do que os meus interesses privados.
Muitas vezes o que a gente considera maus tratos num cão e num gato, quando é num bovino, a gente não considera maus tratos, né? A gente não tem esse olhar de ver determinadas práticas, como, por exemplo, marcação a ferro quente, né? Descorna sem anestesia, castração sem anestesia, né? São tudo práticas que se faz no gado que no cachorro não seria admitida.
This discrimination is called speciesism. It means attributing different values to different animals based on what species they are. This human imbalance causes many species to suffer, be they marine animals, insects, birds, or mammals.
The industries that supply meat, eggs, and dairy to the population are usually government subsidized.
And as they say, there's just not too much money made in people selling vegetables. And for some reason, bizarre reason, there's a lot of money in raising and killing animals for food.
Parte disso a gente sabe, né, que existe um movimento por trás, existe um camuflar informação, existe um conter, uma contenção, existe uma indústria alimentícia e farmacêutica que meio que brinca de marionetes, né, com a massa. Principalmente as pessoas que não perguntam o porquê das coisas. E a gente que pergunta porquê, tem coisas que a gente não pergunta porquê ainda, porque se envolve na poesia.
Isso não chega, né, no público ali, né? As pessoas... Duas questões. Primeiro, que as pessoas nem sempre querem ver, né? Mesmo que chegasse, talvez elas nem quisessem ver e discutir. Mas o fato é que muitas vezes não chega, né? E a mídia se esforça em mostrar o contrário, na verdade, né?
Se eu digo sim para aquele leite, eu digo sim para aquela forma de lidar com a vaca, para aquela forma de... Então existe o desdobramento disso, uma questão política também.
If we mistreat the cow, can we imagine what sort of energy that milk has?
Consequentemente, essas informações vão estar contidas no produto dela, que ela compartilha, né? O próprio leite, e isso vai estar impregnado naquele produto final. E de fato vai para sua mente.
Every cell in our body is intelligent, creative and alive. It knows. It carries memory. Not only is every part of our body intelligent and alive, every part of our body is integrated. So the brain isn't just here. The gut is being called the second brain.
Food has an influence on the mind. There are some foods which bring more harmony, there are some foods which can create more aggression.
Ayurveda also has the food based on sattvic, rajasic and tamasic. Sattvic is like a person's mind is more balanced, is a sattvic. So there are certain food which makes a person very humble, no anger and grounded. There are some food which makes a person active. There are some food which makes a person very greedy or very dull or very negative in the behavior.
However, eating violence makes us more prone to violence. This increases in places where torture and death are part of the day-to-day.
The areas of the largest violence on human beings, that is domestic violence, that means husbands beating wives, it means rape, mugging, murder, is always around a slaughterhouse. Always. Now, thousands of people work in that slaughterhouse. When they go back, they have seen so much violence and that they're dead. After that, it just, is easy to kill a human being. When you increase the violence on animals, it is only a matter of time when you have violence against the weaker sexes. All over the world, people are in jail for heinous crimes: arson, rape, murder, robbery with violence. And if you look into their backgrounds, they've all started by attacking animals and gotten away with it. Here also, for instance, I'll give you an example. We have a lot of acid being thrown on women, and it's new, and men throw it. Women don't throw acid on anybody. But where does it come from? For years and years, people who sell vegetables on the road, they keep their vegetables open, and if a cow comes and the poor cow is hungry and she tries to take a banana or an apple or a vegetable, they throw acid on the cow. So now that's only a step up. You first throw it on the cow, then you throw it on the woman. So violence on animals and violence on people is so interconnected that even America now has put violence on animals into its major list of crimes, where it has to be reported to a national register.
As the study shows, like FBI says that the behavior of a serial killer in their childhood, they have the capacity to torture animals. If you have the capacity to torture an animal, you will somehow have the capacity to hurt another human being.
So it has to correlate somewhat, because if we're killing 70 billion animals, then it seems a lot easier to kill other fellow human beings as well.
Every day, billions of times a day, we're raping defenseless in the form of cows and many other animals.
Women's rights is hugely associated with animal rights. We stand for women's rights. We are so much anti-rape. We believe that women needs to be given the equal rights as men. In a country like India, where a rape happens in every 20 minutes, we neglect the rape that happens in the dairy industry.
If we cannot make peace with animals, we cannot make peace with humans. This is why we have so much conflict and wars with humans, because we are in conflict with animals and at war with animals. So making peace with animals is fundamental to making peace with humans.
So when our ahara and vihara, like lifestyle and food, is balanced, then our achar, our behavior is very balanced. If ahara vihara is not balanced, then our behavior as a human being is very important part of Ayurvedic understanding.
When you're on the spiritual path, the number one biggest inconvenient truth is that we have to stop eating animal flesh and animal secretions to reach that next level of our spiritual growth. And without that, I feel there's no possible way. If there is, it's very difficult. Because as in yoga, the very first limb is ahimsa. It's not the fourth limb, it's not the fifth or sixth limb, it's the very first one. And not only is it the first limb, it's the first of the yamas. So it's the first of the first of first. So you can't go to step 2 until you get this ahimsa down. A lot of people think, oh, I do my asana practice every day, or I'm good to my family, I'm good to my loved ones. Yogi or not, well, even if you don't believe in spirituality, like I don't claim I'm a spiritual person, no matter what, at the core level, we are not meant to kill animals. Because if you were, you would have no problem looking an animal in the eye, just like you were, say, to get an apple tree, and you'd be able to slit the throat of an animal while looking in an eye. We're not allowed to do that because that's not who we are. It's just not.
So Patanjali says, if you practice satya, then your mind, your heart, your words, your actions will all come together.
É fato que isso gera um conflito interno. Eu acredito numa coisa, faço outra, eu dou margem para conflito, né?
O conhecimento e a ação. E se você não fechar o que você sabe que é certo fazer com o que você está fazendo, você vai criar em você mesmo uma natureza moral esquizofrênica.
Então a gente tem que equilibrar. conhecimento e prática. Fazer tudo com compreensão e o que você compreendeu, você tem que aplicar, né? Então isso é a forma da gente se livrar do ego. A humildade é muito importante, né? Você reconhecer que, não, eu não posso agir assim caprichosamente.
Vegetariano eu já sou há muitos anos, lógico, por influência principalmente do meu avô, né, e também dos estudos do yoga, mas eu vi um propósito maior em me tornar vegetariano, né? Da mesma forma é o veganismo. Ah, você não gostava? Não, adorava queijo, adorava. Mas eu vi um propósito maior, abrir mão de um conforto para um bem maior para o planeta e principalmente para os animais.
So no one's doing anything wrong in the past. Like I was eating meat and dairy for 30 years. It's only once you know something, then you can make a moral compass of who I am as a person and what I want to be, and make an educated decision. And I feel most people will do the right thing.
Why wasn't I a vegan? I didn't know. I wasn't really aware. I wasn't conscious of the amount of harm I was doing to others.
Worldwide, there are approximately 300 million yoga practitioners. What would happen if all yoga students were to become vegan? Imagine the reach of these practitioners to all those non-practitioners. People do not have to practice yoga, but they do need to become aware.
Mas nos cursos de formação, nós temos uma média de 500 alunos formados como professores de yoga. É uma grande oportunidade de levar o yoga sem deixar o veganismo de fora, porque os animais dependem de nós, de sermos porta-vozes deles, não é?
We can feel them, we can feel their energy, we can feel how they feel, just looking through their eyes, and they're other living beings that we should respect and love.
Sou instrutora de yoga e tive a minha formação com a mestra Lara Padilha e foi assim que me tornei vegana.
Eu sou aluna dela e me tornei vegana através dos princípios do yoga levados à aula, e hoje uma das minhas maiores alegrias é divulgar essa filosofia de amar.
I started teaching. So I taught at a school regular subjects with the intention of whatever I would earn, I would spend towards animal charities, animal rights.
I have 27 dogs at home. All of whom are one-legged or blind or this. They get enough to eat, they live well, they make their own groups. I have monkeys, and I have 36 hospitals of animals with everything from emus to camels to elephants to everything. And we do our best for them.
We are working with the motto of saving lives. So we are believing in animal equalities. So whether he is a monkey or a cow, our motto is to save a life.
And then we are working in large animal, the one part, and then wildlife one part, and then which one we see is that they need to save, and then happy life they need it, and then we don't want to be next generation here to suffer like that. Because of that we sterilize cows, and then now anyway it's all cows are mostly it's 90%, more than 90% is sterilized, and then they're happy.
Feliz é a Dona Lourdes. Ela vive aqui com um bezerro dela que tem 1 ano e 1 mês ou 2. E continua mamando.
I should not be a slave of my habits. I have a greater vision, greater values, greater principles of compassion, of love, of unity, of whole humanity. These are the great ideas by which I live. My habits I can overcome, I can change, I can be transformed.
What you feel is unconditional love. You feel that you are loved in a way that you never were loved before. One of the ways to rewire your thinking is to cultivate compassion for all beings, loving kindness, to serve people, to think about other people more than yourself.
Do I want to be a part of the past, barbaric, and living with the people part of the past who are, say, sexist or racist or, homophobic or speciesist? Am I part of this past, or am I living in this future of a compassionate towards all beings? Because this is the future.
So the yoga, I always say the yoga of the planet, which is self-regulation, and our yoga is awareness of not doing harm to other species.
Yoga is union with the self, union with the divine, and union with all. When we say all, then it envelops everything, it includes everything.
Future of peace is in our hands. Peace is not a goal to achieve tomorrow. Peace is a process to participate today. So, future of peace is rooted in the present moment. The moment we say, I am going to be compassionate to other human beings, that's the future of peace. The moment you make that pledge, that I am going to live in peace with animals and forests and rivers, with nature, peace begins. So, future of peace begins now, here and now, in this moment. So make the peace now.
When people have the mantra, you've heard Loka Samastasuki no Bhavantu. A lot of people take that in as beings means human beings, and it's just so important that when may all beings be happy and free. It's all beings, not just human beings, it's all beings.
The vegan posture is the key to build the world that we all need, we all desire, with more justice, balance, and much more beautiful.
For a healthy life, it's fundamental you have coherence between your thoughts, words, and attitude.
Quando eu faço yoga, eu compreendo a minha natureza e compreendo a natureza externa. E só aí a gente começa a diminuir esses conflitos, a cessar esses conflitos.
A escolha de cada um tem que fazer uma grande diferença. Uma grande diferença para si mesmo, para os seus familiares, para a comunidade que você vive, para o planeta.
Yoga is meditation. Feel yourself.
It just brings
Trust in
everything
yourself.
to the
Brings beautiful connection to others.
Non-violence for me, it's like respect the other person's space.
Ela passando é sinal de beatitude, de mérito.
Uma coisa é você fazer algo que você não sabe, que você não tem conhecimento, mas a partir do momento que você já sabe, isso se torna uma responsabilidade.
When you are not on your own conscious and you don't know what are you doing, God forgive you. But once you know that you are doing wrong,
e é aquilo, eu evito ver os vídeos, porque eu sei que vai ser esse clique que eu tô esperando. Então, tá, por que eu tô adiando isso? Eu ainda não descobri.
Recalculando rota, recalculando rota, recalculando rota.
I'll try now to be a bit better and fix it up.
Thank you. Just to stop doing that.